The following segment is sponsored by Daniel A. White and Associates.
It does not necessarily reflect the views of WDEL or Forever Media.
Well, it should. Does it? Well, it should. So I've been a long-time happy camper client of Dan White and Associates, and Andrew Wood is on the phone right now, works out of the Middletown office. Every Wednesday after the news, they call in. One of the guys calls in with a great tip, things that we need to be thinking about because, well, you know, what did I mention before? Something like 73% of Americans don't have enough money for retirement, and 33% of Americans have not done anything about retirement. You can call these guys; they're great. They really are great at this. At 30, it's 888-690-8820. Almost gave out a 302 number, but I wouldn't even know it there, Andrew. It's 888-690. 8820. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It'll be a tough act to follow on the prior conversation.
No, it's not. Don't worry about it. We're just talking about the news and events of the day that affect your life in meaningful ways. That's always been the mission statement of the program. And then sometimes I add in something like, and be goofy once in a while. But other than that, what you're talking about is actually stuff that's really, really important to everybody so that I hate to say this, but I had someone call in saying that, you know, they went to a grocery store, they went to a Giant store. There's a guy in his 70s working there, and he said, be patient. I just started. I'm learning this stuff, and I'm thinking, well, maybe some people like to do that, want to do that, but, you know, what you guys do is help people avoid a scenario where you have to do that, and that's really, really important. So thank you.
No, absolutely. That's what most people are looking for. Just financial security. You know, building a foundation so they don't have to worry. But part of our job is obviously keeping in tune and making sure we're keeping up to date with, you know, law changes, regulations, and things like that to make sure that, you know, we can use them really to the best of our clients' ability. So it's really important for us to do this. One of the things that's coming up that we're continuing to get information about last year. So the Secure Act 2.0 was signed into regulation, and we're getting questions about. It's really a rule change that allows annuitized IRAs. So these are annuities that have been annuitized, but it talks about or allowing annuitized IRAs to be combined or aggregated with non-annuity IRA funds for RMD purposes.
Wow.
So it gets fairly
let me interrupt thinking about this. So, you know, this might affect somebody, let's say, for example, a school teacher. And annuities are very, very popular for retirement, 403Bs, things like that, for school teachers. And you could be a school teacher and you have an annuity at one school, and then let's say you move over to another school and you annuitize one of them, and the other school you have an annuity there as well, which you either just started or maybe even rolled someone over. And so you got money coming out of one of them, and the other one doesn't. And they're two different contracts. Is that what you're talking about?
It is. Now, it can be a little bit more complicated than that, and I don't want to make it too blurry, but really what's there are lots of different types of annuities out there, right? So you got to make sure we're talking about the right ones. Now, some that are annuitized, meaning you're getting a lifetime payment typically, and your payment depends on the term of how you elect it. But typically when it's annuitized, there's really no actual value to the account. And an insurance company, this is one of the issues that we're seeing with this rule change, is that it's going to be difficult for an insurance company to give a proper valuation of the actual value of the annuity that has already been annuitized. All right. So that's one of the issues that we're coming across. So, you know, for example, when it comes to an RMD, typically it's a small percentage payout, right? But if you have an annuity, typically the payouts are going to be significantly more than the required minimum distribution. So prior to this piece of legislation, basically what happens is they use a different formula for the RMDs for the annuitized payment. Basically what it says is that the annuitized payment, that is your RMD. All right. So now they're saying, okay, well, if that annuitized payment is more than the actual RMD based on the value, then that payment, some of that payment can be counted towards some of your other required minimum distributions from your other IRA accounts that are non-annuitized.
All right, I already need an accountant. I can see where this is already going to cost me money to have someone figure this out. Oh, wow.
Now, here's the thing, though. I mean, we're still getting more guidance on it, but the biggest problem is the fact that for most insurers, it's very difficult for them to find what they call the fair market value of these annuities once they've been annuitized. All right, so the IRS may allow for this aggregation, but it's going to be nearly impossible to figure exactly, how much you can aggregate because, there is, for most companies, they don't have a proper valuation of that account that has been annuitized already. So, people are going to typically try to avoid that aggregation right now until there is further clarification or guidance. But something that obviously we got to keep our eyes on, because if people can take advantage of this might actually reduce some of the other required minimum distributions from other accounts, which means typically fewer, or I should say less income that's being drawn out.
Why might somebody be doing that?
What's that?
Well, basically annuitizing one of the contracts and not another one.
Yeah, so when I say non-annuitized contracts, I mean, this can also refer to some annuities that, I mean, some of them are just withdrawal benefits. They're not technically annuitized, but this is also, referring to just regular IRA accounts that are not annuities as well. So again, if you can have some of your required minimum distribution that's coming from an annuitized contract and have that count as some of the RMD from your other money, that could be very beneficial.
Right.
But again, we just need more clarification on that. It's nothing that sounds like we're just waiting for more guidance on it.
Oh, it's true. Let's say that somebody has a couple of different IRAs, okay? And one IRA is doing really... In fact, let's say that somebody has an IRA and it's in a money market making 5%, and they're really happy with that. And the other one doesn't have that option with the company that's holding that money in that particular IRA bucket, as I like to think of it. And they say, well, you know what? I want to leave the money in the one that's making 5% in the money market, but I'll just take the money out of the other one. Now, you're required to take the money out. I think that would be a beautiful thing if people would say, oh, well, here's the total that I have to take out based upon my age, et cetera, and expected life, your life expectancy. I think that would be great if people could just take one out of one account. Like it would have helped my dad a whole lot, I think, and not have to take it out of another account that's doing quite well and you want to leave it in there. Unfortunately, the law now, as I understand, is nope. If you're required to take money out, no matter what the account is, you got to take it out of all of them. Right? All of them.
Well, there are ways. I mean, there are, like, for example, you can aggregate IRA accounts for the RMD purposes, but you can't do that with 401ks and IRAs and different types of accounts. So you just got to be careful with that. But this is really applying to, again, annuitized IRA accounts versus non-annuitized IRA accounts. So again, I mean, in a situation like that, what you find is that, based on the traditional way of how they calculate RMDs, meaning not the annuity way, what you're finding is that people that have annuitized contracts, if they follow this new law, when these evaluations come out, is that they might not have to pull quite as much out of those other accounts. So it could be very beneficial for a lot of people, but again, further clarification, further guidance is going to be expected.
Yeah, not only do we have catchers and pitchers reporting soon, but also your taxes have to be reported soon as well. So what are some of the things that people are not thinking about right now do you think they ought to be?
Yeah, so, this time, IRA contributions is typically what we're getting a phone call about. We're doing our taxes. CPA says we should probably either add money to an IRA or maybe a Roth IRA, something like that, by the deadline. But other than that, just making sure everything's getting done, getting in order.
All right, man. Andrew Wood, Dan White and Associates. You can find him at danwhiteandassociates.com. I find it easier just to Google Dan White, and that's it, because it's too much to type. And you can reach them at 888-690-8820. They don't charge anything just to go over your accounts to give you some advice. They're great folks. I've used them for many, many years. Love them. Every Sunday morning at 7 a.m., Dan White hosts On the Money. Do you have any idea what's on the program for this Sunday?
Yeah, so he's going to be doing a pretty deep dive into what's happening with the economy, whether a recession's on the horizon, and what are the potential things that could trigger a recession. So he's going to be talking really about the economy at that point.
Yeah, we've been hearing about recession all the time. I think there was actually one technical recession in the last 3 years that we had to suffer through. Really, that what's killing us is inflation, I think, more than anything else. But, yeah, there are all sorts of triggers that can cause a recession, and we just need to prepare for it. Make sure you got – I know it's tough. What I'm going to say is it's going to be horrible for many, many people. But it's something that you got to do. Try to keep 6 months of all your expenses in the bank because you just don't know what's going to happen. And
Rick, you're spot on. I mean, no one has the crystal ball. So, having a plan or being prepared, I think, is important.
The good news, Andrew, is that, and I've been reporting on this as well, a lot of top economists, some in the Feds, by the way, the Federal Reserve, not all of them, but because many of them are independent thinkers, but they've all been saying that, gosh, we have a hard recession coming. And I remember that beginning around 2021 or so, saying a hard recession could come. It hasn't. Now, we've had some serious problems, like in the tech industry, hundreds of thousands of jobs lost, and then I think about 70% of them came back. So you're right. I mean, you just don't know because this is just a weird time. You push so much money into the money supply that it causes inflation. And then, of course, the Fed says, well, we have to do some things about that and raise interest rates. But are you surprised we haven't had a hard recession now, or are you just following along and not reacting?
That's a really, really tough question to answer.
Okay, then don't.
Again, I think it's more about just being prepared, right? So again, we can't control anything that's going to happen. We don't have a crystal ball of exactly what's going to happen. So I think just again having a plan is really going to be the most important thing.
Yeah, and you know how, and that's your expertise. You know how to plan and how to help people plan. Andrew Wood at Dan White and Associates, 888-690-8820. Andrew, thanks so much, man. You always great advice. Great advice. Now keep it here.